Everyone. So in last class we looked at Gauss law, which help us finding electric field for a given charge distribution. If the charge distribution has some sort of symmetry, then Gauss can be used or can be exploited, and the symmetry can be exploited to find the electric field. We saw a couple of example of using Gauss law. One was the familiar infinite length line charge with linear charge density of rho L coulombs per meter, and we found that D field can be obtained by putting up Gauss surface which is cylindrical in nature, okay, and then the field was essentially going as 1 by r, so it was inversely varying as r, okay. So we also saw another example of using Gauss law. This example was infinite sheet of charge, okay, and then we took Gauss surface as small pillbox, and this is sometimes called as Gaussian pillbox, and then we found that the field, because of uniform surface charge density, distribution rho s coulombs per meter square, was essentially independent of where you are located. So it was independent of all the locations. Of course, these two are not realistic in sense that they are not, or you are not going to find infinite line charge or infinite amount of plane charge, but there are good approximation for long line charge or a uniformly spread out of plane charge, okay. So we will continue with couple of examples of Gauss law, and then we will look at what is called as point form of Gauss law. So to recap, if you have already forgotten what is Gauss law is, Gauss law states that the integral, the closed surface integral of quantity d, okay, so d dot ds, which is integral of the quantity d is electrical flux density. It is measured in coulombs per meter square. So this quantity, if you integrate over a closed surface, this should be equals to total charge that is enclosed. Of course, that charge that is enclosed, the charge is uniformly distributed in a region or of space, will be given by integral of charge density over an approximate integration. Why do I say approximate integration? Because if the charge is spread out in the region or space in terms of its volume charge density, then you have to integrate the volume, okay, and if the charge is spread out over a line, then you have to integrate over the line, and if the charge is spread out as a point, then point charge, then there is no integration involved. Directly you are going to get the charge, okay. I didn't specifically mention the relationship between surface that you have to use in applying Gauss law and the volume. For example, if I consider a point charge q, okay, so we know that the field lines from earlier Coulomb's law itself, we know that the field lines are going as 1 by r square. We also saw how to use Gauss law in example, or if we have not seen it, fairly simple. So you can assume Gauss surface, okay, that would enclose the charge. There are some involved, is this one we will come back to this substrate sometime later. So you can assume Gauss surface for a certain radius, okay, as a measured from origin, and then you are applying Gauss over here. Now what will be the left hand side? So you can assume Gauss surface which is spherical, because this is a nice spherical symmetry you can apply, and then you get left hand side, which would essentially be some dr 4 pi r square. If your sphere has a radius of r, then the left hand side will be given by dr multiplied by 4 pi r square. 4 pi r square being the surface of area of sphere of a constant radius r, okay. Now what about volume? Should we actually talk about volume of the surface that is enclosed? That is, can I take the volume outside of the charge like this? or outside of Gaussian surface. So if this S stands for Gaussian surface that I am using the calculation of left hand side, then I can take the volume over here. Okay, now I have to take a surface and a volume both to be same, essentially saying that the surface S must enclose the corresponding volume that we are looking for. In another word, choose the surface and also see that the surface which is closed, you have to evaluate the volume of enclosed surface. Okay, so you can't choose a surface here and volume somewhere else. In these two have to be same. Okay, so this is some precaution that you have to take when you are solving the Gauss law. So with this in mind, let us go ahead for an example of Gauss law, something that would come up fairly later as an important example. We are looking for is a spherical cell of charge. Okay, so this is a typical example that you are going to use Gauss law with. Then there is a spherical symmetry. So for this kind of problem, Gauss law is very easy to apply. If you were try to apply this one with Coulomb's law, you will struggle a little bit. Okay, so if I consider a spherical cell and let us assume that the cell is hollow. Okay, so it is essentially the cell is made up of conducting material and it is in form of a nice sphere of radius a. Okay, so this cell, if you were to induce some charge or any of the charge induction process, you will see that this charge nicely distributes on the surface of the cell. So the charge nicely get distributed on the surface of the cell, and then you want to find out the field everywhere. Okay, that is the problem that we are going to solve using Gauss law. So I have a spherical cell here and the cell has a certain radius and call that radius as A, and the charge that distributed over the surface of the cell. Okay, so the charge is uniformly distributed over the surface of the cell, so with the uniform charge density of rho s coulombs per meter square. Okay, so please remember that this surface area we are considering is actually spherical in nature. So if you take an overall surface, which would be, the surface area of this sphere will be 4 pi a square. So if Q is the total amount of charge and the surface charge density is Q by 4 pi a square, this amount of total charge is spread uniformly over the cell. Now to apply the Gauss law, let's look at the left hand side. Okay, so we need to of course choose a surface over which D field will be perpendicular to the surface. It is not always possible, but if it's possible, you always choose a situation in which D field is perpendicular to the surface. So what is the advantage of choosing D field which is perpendicular to the surface? Now let us say, for argument reason, this is not correct. So let us say D field is in this way, okay, to the surface that you have chosen, or rather let us go back and write the field here. The field all would be directly radially away, and the field is directed radially away, but instead of choosing such a sphere surface, what I am going to do is I will choose a rectangular surface. And now what happened? This part of D field, which is of course originating from the cell is not perpendicular. If you will see here, it is not perpendicular to the surface area, right? So there is some component of D that where there could be along the normal to the surface, right? Similarly over that here, D field not perpendicular. If you will see here, it's not perpendicular. Here D is perpendicular, but such a line is only one, and probably on the bottom side there will be one. So evaluating Gauss law over such a surface because mathematically tedious, and that actually defeat the whole point of using Gauss law. The whole point of using Gauss law is to minimize the integration, the effort that you are going to put in integration, and you can do that provided you choose a surface in which D is perpendicular to the surface, right? So that the dot product which is sitting between D and ds can be eliminated and it simply becomes scalar integral. Okay. So it means it is actually a scalar integral, but the evaluation of dot products become very easy to perform. So this kind of arbitrary surface, although Gauss law actually holds, it's not well suited for our purpose because we do not want to increase our effort in integration. So with that in mind, I am going to choose a Gauss surface which is going to be a spherical. Okay. So let me redraw Gauss surface and apply the left hand side of the Gauss surface, Gauss law, radius A. Now I choose a Gauss surface which also will be in the form of sphere. Let us say I choose two surfaces. One surface I am going to choose inside the cell. Okay. So the center of the sphere will be origin, and I am going to choose a surface S1. Let's call the surface S1 which is inside the cell. Okay. Now what happened to the left side of the Gauss law? The left side of Gauss law tells that over closed loop surface, if there was any D field over here, this must be equals to total charge enclosed by the surface. Now clearly the right hand side will be equals to 0 for this case. Why? Because this surface S1, you have to assume that this surface S1 is closed. This S1 is closed. Of course it is closed, and then you have to see that there is actually no charge enclosed by this. Okay. So there is no charge enclosed by the surface S1, and therefore this will be equals to 0 on the surface S1 that we have considered. Of course the surface S1 will we didn't specify what radius of is. The radius of sphere S1 could be anywhere from 0 to A, right? So as long as r is less than a, which is defined as surface S1, the corresponding integral value will be equals to 0, right? Now the integration is 0. It actually means D is 0. That is interesting question, right? So if you are looking at this integral, that integral is 0. What happened to the field D? So let's do this. On the surface, assume that there is D field, and if there is a D field, then it would be perpendicular, right, to the surface. So it will be perpendicular. So if this is sphere, all the lines which are along the radial will be perpendicular to the surface of the sphere. So what is the incremental surface area that we have on the surface of sphere S1. That incremental area will be directed along the radial direction, and that is given by r hat. Let's call that radius of this one as r itself. Okay, so I have r square sin theta d theta d phi. Okay, please do not get confused between this r and this r. This r is actually the radius of S1, and d has only the r component or the radial component, so that becomes r hat. Okay, r hat d r. So if I consider dot provided between the two, I am going to get dr, then r square sin theta d theta d phi, integral over the sphere radius, right? Now I also know that my d field do not depend on phi and theta because of symmetry condition. That d field do not depend on phi and theta. So dr will be essentially constant over the surface and actually can be removed out of integral, and remaining portion of integral will be simply given by the surface area 4 pi r square. So I actually have a constant dr, that is dr is a constant over the surface, that is getting multiplied by the surface area of the sphere S1, which is 4 pi r square. But the right hand side of this side is equals to 0 because r is less than a, right? Since this will not be equals to 0, right, so the only conclusion that we are going to have from this expression is that dr must be equals to 0 inside a. So inside a hollow cell, dr will be equals to 0. The radial component of d, which is only component of d, that would be equals to 0, but we also know that if material is made up of some homogeneous material or it is just free space or air, then the material will be described by a constant epsilon naught. The permittivity of medium which relates dr and er, right? So the radial component of the electrical field. So if this is dr is equals to 0, epsilon naught is not 0, which simply means er will also be equals to 0. So as long as you are inside the cell, electric field component will be 0. Okay, alright. So this was the electric field component inside the cell. So electric field is 0 inside the cell. Now what happen if I choose Gauss surface outside the cell, right? So outside of the cell, if I choose, what will happen? So let us say I choose Gauss surface, let's call that as S2, okay, and this has a radius of r again, but it's a greater than a. So if I choose this surface, call this as S2 as Gaussian surface, which is outside the cell, and there are of course charge on the cell. Let us write one, otherwise this will become two circles, right? So we will choose that we are actually trying to solve. Okay, so this is our situation. We have chosen a surface S2 which is outside the cell. So what would happen to the right side and left side of Gauss law? So left side again will have a situation where d field will be radially directed, as well as there would be constant on the surface S2. This is my d field, okay. There would be a constant on the surface S2, allowing us to rewrite this d dot ds integral over closed surface now with respect to this surface S2 as dr 2 pi r square being the surface area of S2. And here it's not the condition, here it is r is greater than a. So remember r is greater than a. So this is the left side of the Gauss law. So what happened to right hand side of Gauss law now? So you must now see what this should be equals to total charge enclosed by the surface S2. Now there is no charge in the intermediate region over here, right? The amount of charge that is enclosed must come by integrating the charge density over the surface area of the sphere, which is the original cell charge that we are considering. The original cell of charge has a radius of a. Therefore, right hand side becomes rho s 4 pi a square. This is that correct? So the right hand side will be equals to rho s 4 pi a square. That is total charge that we have. Okay. So now we will simply evaluate the left hand side and right hand side, equate the left hand side and right side of the Gauss law, thereby getting dr as rho s 4 pi a square by 4 pi r square. 4 pi in numerator and 4 pi in denominator will go away. Now you left with rho s a square by r square. So this is radial field. Electrical field ER, again assuming that the medium outside here is filled with epsilon naught. So the radial field ER will be equals to ES by ES a square by epsilon naught r square, provided r is greater than a. Now at r is equals to a, if you see for the surface S square, see what happen as you come close to from shrinking S2. If you are shrinking and coming close to the surface which was originally with the radius of a radius r, to the sphere of radius a. So what happened as you start shrinking S2, that is if you come outside of the sphere, so if you start coming towards to the cell, spherical cell of charge that contain. So what would be the value of electric field predicted? The value of electric field predicted will be obtained by writing r is equals to a. So when you are substituting r is equals to a, this fellow will become rho s by epsilon naught, right? So for the outside of the cell, as you start moving toward or inside, you are going to predict electric field by rho s by rho s by epsilon naught. However, if you remember what we have done in couple of minutes earlier, inside electric field was actually equals to 0, right? So if you now start expanding the surface S1, so you start expanding the surface S1, which means that you are r, which was radius of S1, is now becoming closer to a. That electric field will still be equals to 0. So there is some amount of discontinuity between what the value you will get when r is less than a. You approach a for the left hand side, and what will get for r greater than a. Then you approach the cell on right hand side. So this discontinuity is a fact. Getting the discontinuity is not completely incorrect, because this is previously the amount of discontinuity that is required to maintain. So the charge distribution, okay. So we are going to see this type of discontinuity when we discuss boundary condition later. But for now, remember that this discontinuity is the reason why I am going to, or why there is a charge distribution on the cell. Okay. So if you want to sketch, you can sketch the electric field. So let's sketch the electric field of the function of radius r, distance r. So you will see until r is less than a, this is the a is the radius of my cell. There will not be any field. At r is equals to a, the field will be equals to rho s by epsilon naught. Okay. Then it start to go as 1 by r square. So if you are very far away from spherical cell, the charge would essentially will be 1 by r square, and the entire charge would look like as though it is coming from the center of the spherical cell. So it looks like the entire charge that you are actually distributed on the surface is actually concentrated on a point at the center of the cell. Now what about potential V of R? So we know that potential and electric field are related with each other, and we can actually calculate what is potential. The potential of electric field, which is going by 1 by r square, will go as 1 by r, right? So this is similar to the point charge potential that we have seen, so that we can calculate the potential which you can obtain by integrating electrical field from one point to another point, and you know dropping takes the point of origin as infinity. And considering all potential with respect to infinity as absolute potential at a point, this V of R will be equals to total charge enclosed divided by 4 pi epsilon naught r. R over here. Okay. So potential is going as 1 by r. Now here, as interesting thing, what will be the potential if you start sketching the potential? What will be the sketch of potential? That is, electric field was discontinuous here, right? And electric field was discontinuous over here. What happened to the potential? First consider R much greater than A. So in this case, the potential is going as 1 by R. So 1 by R, so this behavior is 1 by R, okay. Now as you start to move towards the cell, right, the potential keep on increasing, and at R is equals to A, you are going to get total potential of Q total, which is total charge enclosed, which is into rho s and 4 pi epsilon naught A square. If you want to write down that, divide by 4 pi epsilon naught A. So this must be the potential of the spherical cell of the charge, right? So this will be the value of Q total by 4 epsilon A. R is equals to A over here. Now what will be the potential to the left? Well, it will be 0 or Q total by 4 epsilon naught A will be, we have some finite value. It is interesting to see that one, that the potential will not actually go to 0, okay. The potential will be a constant and it could be continuous at this point, whereas electric field was discontinuous. This potential is actually continuous. Now why would potential be continuous, and why is the potential not going to 0 inside the cell? Well, if you recall, what is the definition of potential? Potential was the energy that was required to move a charge from one point to another point, right? So if you start far away from infinity and then you move, say that radial path, you are keep moving, the potential will keep on increasing, right? So the potential energy keeps on increasing, and as you reach the cell, you are at maximum potential, right? So you are at maximum potential, you have done whatever the work that is required to move the test charge from infinity to the cell. Now inside the cell, do you have to do any additional work in order to move the charge? The answer is no. Why? Because there is no electric field inside the cell. So the cell has no electric field, therefore you do not have to do any additional work in order to move charge once you have brought it to the edge of the surface or at the surface. So the surface of cell, then inside you do not have to spend any more energy in order to move charge, which means that the potential must remain constant. Also the potential can't change in discontinuous manner. So potential will be continuous, and the potential will actually be equals to q by 4 pi epsilon naught a, the maximum value. Inside also it will be same value, okay, up to the center of the cell. Okay, so this is very crucial. Please note that electric field can be 0, and electric field is 0 inside the cell, but the potential is not 0. Okay, all right. So with this we will sort of close Gaussian law now. This is lot of other symmetric charge distribution that you can keep working on. So we are not going to consider them. Thank you. That's all for today's lecture.